Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Adult Child of Dysfunction. Easy for me to say. I've said it 8 times today. So, today we have with us Mayim Vega, and I'm just going to jump right in and let her tell a little bit about her story, and then we're going to get to chatting. Welcome, Mayim. How are you?
Hello, Tammy. Thank you for having me. So, my story is basically that I was formerly a computer scientist at the NASA Ames Research Center in Mossfield, California. And then I got married and had my first baby, and I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But we were in the Silicon Valley. It was very expensive. It still is. Still
Hmm.
ridiculously expensive, even more so. Anyways, so my husband's like, no, you can't just do that. So I said, okay, well, I'll become an entrepreneur. And so I started my first business, and then I had a second child. And then I got really sick,
Mm.
and the doctor thought that I had a brain tumor. But after a bunch of tests and CT scan, she said, oh, good news, you don't have a brain tumor, but bad news, we have no idea what's wrong with you. And here's some Valium, which is basically a really strong painkiller, which it didn't work much better than the over the counter stuff that I was already taking. So that wasn't my first disappointment with the modern medical system, but I had resolved that it would be my last. And so I ventured to study nutrition and herbalism and holistic health and got certified in those things and also eventually life coaching. And I found out what was wrong with me, and I was able to deal with the root cause. And it was multiple factors, but that all contributed to it. And then I started my business, Arukah.com, to help others unleash their inner healer, and find answers when the modern medical system had failed them as well. And there's a
Well,
lot of
I
people
absolutely
like
love
that.
that. And now I know why I picked you for the podcast. Why I was like, oh, pick her because I was like, how does someone go? I said, there has to be a story if you go from being a NASA engineer to an herbalist or whatever, somebody in in the health and wellness and doing what you're doing, which I love
Yep.
because it's so I, I know that I went through this with my daughter where nobody could diagnose what she had. We had took her, she was just a kid and we took her for so many biopsies and they thought she had Paget's disease and they thought she had this and they thought she had that. And then my husband actually ended up finding a naturopath doctor who was like, oh no, she's got this. And after like 7 years of just mystery, it was basically all taken care of with frequencies and, matching frequencies to different diseases and supplements and getting the toxicity out of her body. And so I literally watched a miracle happen in front of my eyes. She went from someone who was going to have heart surgery with no explanation as to why her heart was spiking to 225 beats a minute and then dropping to 40. Like, but they were willing to just go into a 17-year-old's chest and try to figure it out. So kudos to what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Frequency is very important. And there's good frequencies that can heal us, like what you just said. And there's also a lot of bad frequencies that are hurting us. EMFs are one of the major toxins that we are dealing with in our modern day. And I think it's one of the silent causes of disease today.
For the people out there listening, can you explain what EMFs are?
Well, EMFs are basically electromagnetic frequencies that are emitted by our mobile phones, by our computers, televisions, wireless routers in our house that gives us, wireless internet. Also, our smart meters. Also, cell phone towers. If you live near one, that can be a cause of, poor health and disease. And there are a lot of ways that you can protect yourself from that. There are devices that you can buy to measure the EMFs around you. And there are also, simple things, putting your cell phone on airplane mode as much as possible, keeping it away from you as much as possible, like, on the other side of the room, in a different room when you're sleeping, turning it off, turning your wireless internet off. If you live in an apartment complex, you might need to move if you are truly EMF sensitive. And sometimes it takes a while to discover if you are or not. Um, and so yeah, it's
And
one
we get mixed messages because like they say, "Oh, okay, you're having trouble sleeping or you want to know how you're sleeping. So here's the sleep app. Put your phone right next to your head while you're going to bed and we'll
nope,
I mean things
nope.
like that where it's like, okay, so there's a benefit but the risk probably way outweighs the benefit of knowing how much deep sleep you have every night when you're sleeping with your phone next to literally 6 inches from your head.
No, yeah. Mm-mm.
So
If you need a sleep app, I would say you don't need internet access to access it. Probably, hopefully not. But you can also put it on the other side of the room, if you really need it.
right, right. I mean, yeah, so just get it as far away as possible. I know
Yeah.
when they were doing the healing with my daughter, they had some vials of frequencies where once it got near electronics, they were like, you might as well throw it out. It's no
Yeah.
good. Like
It
all
all
of
depends
that
on how
negates.
sensitive a person is to the frequencies. I'm very, very sensitive.
So what would be some signs that you are sensitive to things?
I have one friend who she has to live in the country and she feels it when she goes into the city. She feels the EMFs and she does not feel good. I have another one of my students, when she is exposed to too much electricity, um she she has cancer, and the area that she has cancer, it's 95% healed though. But when she goes near it or is exposed to it too much, it starts hurting.
Mm,
Me personally, if I use the computer too much, my cell phone or my mouse even, my fingers will start feeling like they are burning. Like I
mm,
just touched a hot pot or fire,
wow.
and they'll feel like that, but they're not actually burnt.
Right.
They just feel burnt. And so I do have a redox gel that I use to help with that, but also just trying to reduce that as much as possible. So yeah, there are a lot of signs that people, and also just headaches and migraines also, that can be caused by EMFs as well.
Yeah. So with your work, you just teach people about the dangers or you help them kind of detox from this or what do you do for them?
So the main way I help people is through my certification program. And really, I teach people the fundamentals of holistic health and healing, detoxification, nutrition, as well as orthomolecular nutrition, which is megadose vitamin therapy, and
Okay.
also herbalism, and then how to deal with various issues throughout life and the leading killers, both common and deadly and chronic issues.
Yeah,
And
because
this is my
there's so much chronic health issues that they just don't understand. And it's so much of it. I say that all the time. And they say the average person, even the average person that is conscious of what they're putting in their body is still exposed to like 128 toxins before they walk out of their house. It's like when you think about it like that, it's like, whoo. So even people that are aware that think they're doing the right thing. But I remember my father, like he was very big into like he was one of the first ones to buy like the protector for your wallet. And he would never keep his phone in his back pocket because he's like, I don't want cancer in my lower back. Like, he used to say things like that all the time. And that was, way before people thought about these things, but it makes sense if you're sitting there with your cell phone on your hip all day long. Probably why a lot of men have, or wherever you carry that cell phone or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the fabrics that we use and the chemicals that they use on things that are designed to be flame retardant,
Mm-hmm.
also very toxic. Yeah, toxins are just all around us. And this is why we have to do, people say, vitamins and supplements, they're not natural. Well, sometimes we have to do things that are not natural in order to counter our very unnatural, toxic world. But even though a vitamin pill, it's not our ancestral food. But yet the vitamin itself, when it goes into our body, it feels natural to our body, meaning it knows what to do with it and it can process it in a way that is beneficial without all the terrible side effects that pharmaceutical drugs have.
Oh yeah,
Like,
no,
our
absolutely. And it's
ancestors weren't using man-made frequency healing tools, but we have to counter all of the negative things. And one of the ways that we can do that safely is through frequency. And frequency, in and of itself, is natural. It's natural to our universe,
yeah,
really.
yeah, everything has a frequency. Talk a little bit more about that because that's fascinating to me.
Um, yeah, well, everything has a frequency. And this is actually what homeopathy is based on. A lot of people feel like homeopathy is like ridiculous, but it's based on frequency. And there's been a lot of experiments done that show that even the structure of water has different shape when it has certain frequencies. There's research that shows that playing certain kinds of music can
Hmm.
help plants grow
Yep.
better. Different types of sounds can heal us emotionally, which can help us with depression and all these mental health issues. I mean, it a lot of people try to, look down on it, but it's not that irrational. It's actually very rational. It's just that people don't want to admit it because, well, mostly the pharmaceutical companies, they don't want to admit it because it's so easy. It's so hard to patent, you know.
Right, right.
um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was watching I don't even know where I saw it, but they were talking about frequencies and how frequencies attract each other, and they were talking just about energy, and they were talking in general, but they were showing how like if you do like the G chord on a guitar and there's a guitar sitting on the other side of the room, that same it will literally almost vibrate and mimic that frequency. And people were like, that's kind of crazy, it just, but it's freak. I mean, we're all energy. It is energy. I have one of
Yes.
those, I do a lot of essential oils. So I have one of those little machines where it will mimic duplicate the frequencies of each oil and it will tell you, you put it on your, you hold this thing and it sends it out into like, I tell people it just sends it out. It like gives you a fake zap of each oil and whatever your body kind of reacts to, that's what would be not necessarily what your body needs, but what it matches up with and what it activates in your body at that particular moment. And people are like, that's crazy. But we've tested it. Like if my knees are bad, so usually if I just do it all the time, it'll give me things that are like oils for like arthritis and healing oils. And then if I'm like super upset and get myself really worked up about something, it'll give me it all. I can do it like 4 hours later, and that what it says my body reacts to are things like lavender and Roman chamomile and the calming ones. So it's
Mhm.
like you see it kind of that in small scale like that, but there's bigger tools that you can use in that realm. I know for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say never discount anything just because you don't understand it. That's a very archaic way to do life, really.
Yeah, it is.
We would never advance as a society if we always took that approach.
Yeah, I always say when people are like, "Well, I don't understand it," I'm like, "I don't understand how electricity works, but I use the light every day in my house.
Exactly. Yeah,
I don't care.
right.
I don't care how it works. It
And when
works."
it first came out, people thought it was voodoo as well,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, they were like, "What do you mean you could talk from a distance?" I don't care how the phone works. It works. Just take advantage of it. No, I get that totally, and that is a very close-minded, and that's why I know a lot of like when energy healing. I mean, we're all energy, and with like I take a supplement that literally is like little gels and little lozenges, but it's like literally your body thinks that's what it's getting. It thinks it's getting beet juice and it thinks it's getting, the natural, like you said, it knows what to do with that in your body versus something that's completely artificial. It knows what it is.
Hmm.
But do you recommend for people, so let's say they want to do like some kind of detox and just start to kind of be healthier? Do you recommend something in particular or just general?
Well, there's things that there's certain detoxes that can help people and it can hurt another person. So detoxes should really be individualized, but there are things that everyone is usually deficient in, like vitamin D, good quality water, not tap water, um, some common supplements that I think most people are deficient in as well would be
I
magnesium,
was going to say
B12,
magnesium.
and also iodine. I think that's a really big one that's not a lot of people talk about is most people are iodine deficient, and that's why we are coming out with a lot of thyroid disorders and
Mm,
hypothyroidism and things like that. And the reason why we are so iodine deficient is because of all the chemicals that they're putting in our food, in our clothing, in our furniture, our carpets, things like that, which deplete our bodies of iodine or prevent them from absorbing them properly. And so iodine deficiency is really a huge one. And
hmm.
it's a very cheap supplement. And there's a lot of controversy around it, but it's unfounded. And I would recommend the book Iodine Crisis. That's available on Audible. And also David Brownstein's book on iodine. And that's not available on Audible. I prefer audiobooks. That's why I
Me too.
recommended the audiobook. Then David Brownstein's is really the probably the most authoritative book on the subject. So anyone experiencing thyroid disorders, I would really look into iodine.
Is that something you can get in food? Is that a mineral or is that a
It is a mineral, and you can get it from seaweed and seafood mostly. But because we're so deficient in it, I believe that most people could benefit from supplementation. It can
okay,
help with your thyroid helps manage your hormones,
right.
your temperature control, your energy, your mental focus, a lot of things. So if you are experiencing, brain fog, chronic fatigue, hormonal imbalance, all these things, you might want to look into your thyroid
Hmm.
and start supplementing with iodine. Do your
Yeah.
research
Yeah. And
or
it's funny
contact me as well.
because there's so many things out there and so many, if you listen to everybody has their thing, like you said, magnesium, iodine, vitamin D, what those things. And it's like, where do you start? Like a general multivitamin, or I know I've always been told that things that are like in liquid form sometimes assimilate better into your body. But do you just think like is there like a multivitamin mineral slash combo that you think people should just start with that? And that's a good place to start at least.
No, I would start with a book. My first recommendation to everyone is read a certain book.
Okay.
Um, there are a lot of books that I think people should learn. And because health is so individual.
Yes.
I just said many things. Avoiding EMFs. Good clean water, sunshine. That's another one. Exercise is a huge one. A lot of common sense. Also prayer. I do believe that if we pray, God will answer us and lead us. Prayer coupled with action, believing in faith that God will lead us to the answers and that He wants us to be healed and we will be healed and we can be healed. And, I attribute, that my engineering mind also to that because, as a computer scientist, I'm like, there's an answer and I'll find it. And
Right.
we can treat our health the same exact way. There is a way to heal and we can find it. We might have to experiment and the ultimate answer and the ultimate healer is not someone else. It's going to be you. And you
Right.
have to empower yourself with knowledge. I think knowledge is the key, not a specific supplement or herb, but knowledge, really.
Right. And that makes sense because, like you said, it's all individualized. Nobody knows where you've been living, what you've been eating, what you've been doing. So just learning as much as you can about everything, like anything. Like you said, knowledge is so power. But I like those tips that you gave, like the good tap water, or not tap water, but actually good water. I know it makes such a difference. And just the keeping away from the EMFs, that's a huge one right there. Just, I know that's when
And
they
the
say if you're
processed
not sleep,
foods.
yes, processed foods are horrible. What did they say? Like one of the three worst things are like processed deli meat is like one of the worst things you can eat. And everybody goes, oh, I'll go get myself a turkey sandwich. That's healthy. Well, no, it's not necessarily healthy. Even, I was talking to someone that's into farming, and when they were talking about uh, like natural food, quote unquote, natural food and organic food, they were like, well, in my state, in order to be considered organic, it just can't have more than three banned pesticides in it. I'm like, oh, that's great. So it's
What
still
state is
not,
that?
or, huh?
What state
Oh,
is
I don't want to
that?
say.
Oh,
But
why?
that's,
No, you got to tell us.
yeah, no kidding. No, that was out in Iowa. It was a farmer that I
Oh,
knew out
wow.
there that said that.
That's
And
sad.
so he said, but he's like, yeah, he goes, so we do what we can do to get the stuff into our ground. He said, but we farm so fast now that you don't even have time to like do what you're supposed to do to the ground and to the soil to get any nutrients back in there. Let alone, it's just it's a challenge. So I
Yeah.
talk a lot about, going to the orange orchard and the fact that oranges aren't orange in an orange orchard. They're green and brown and orange. So then they come out of there and they get dyed or bleached or gassed, and then they turn orange. So it's crazy, but this was really fun. Like I learned something. I hope all the listeners learned something as well. But if they wanted to work with you or learn more about what you do, how would they reach you?
Just my website, www.arukah.com, and that's spelled ARUKAH.com.
And I will put that in the show notes as well. So they will have access to that if you're driving or listening and can't write it down right now. But thank you so much for coming. But before you leave, can you leave us with a tip or your best piece of advice for today to get them through the day a little happier or healthier?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, just that I believe that success is holistic also. And, I believe that there's four dimensions. Of course, one of them that most people think of is the financial, career, those kinds of things. But then there's also your health. If you, without success in health, you can't even enjoy your wealth, right? And then the other area that I think people need to strive to have success in is also the relationships with other people. It's a big part of your health, but also, how can you enjoy your financial success if you don't have people to share it with? And then finally, the fourth area that I believe is important to strive for success in is your personal and spiritual life. And this is transcendent, beyond anything material, and it can really sustain you when everything else is down. So to really take care of your personal and spiritual health.
Well, thank you. You said that very well. So thank you, Mayim, for coming. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tammy.
Oh yeah, no problem. And for everybody else out there listening, you heard it again. More stories of what we can do to make ourselves happier, healthier, and more hopeful. So you got it, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Have a good day.